Good morning, everybody. Admiral Joshi, General Chandele, distinguished guests, officers, the Indian Armed Forces, and ladies and gentlemen. It's interesting to be pretty much the first speaker after General Chandele, so I'm hoping that I don't say anything controversial or anything which doesn't provoke a lot of thinking. When Sanjay asked me to be up on the stage at this early hour, what I did was, not being from a defense background, I spoke to one of my colleagues who's a gentleman called General Maples, who's the ex-director of the Defense Intelligence Agency in the US, and he sits on the board of our company. So I took some coaching from him and a lot of thoughts from him in terms of where he sees and his officers see intelligence, or multi-int as they say, advancing, and the role technology plays. I think General Chandele has set a very interesting tone in his deliberation earlier today about technology being a force multiplier. One of the main things today, if you look at the world around you, the explosion in technology is absolutely phenomenal, and the information which we have today as human beings to make decisions. I think this is the first generation, the last 5 years, is the first time in mankind's history where there is no excuse for making a bad decision because you didn't have access to the right information. That was not the case 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or even 100 years ago. But going ahead, I think there's no decision support system in this world, or no government, whether it be civilian or defense-based decisions, should be made without the right information at the right time. So just, I think I like this very interesting saying from Winston Churchill, and this is taken from a speech which was given by the head of the US Air Force earlier this year in the US, when he said, when he repeated what Churchill said and said, "Gentlemen, we have run out of money, now we have to think." So I don't think we've run out of money, so as to say, in this country, but definitely it isn't, we're not bestowed with God's greatness that we have abundant or unending resources that we don't have to think different. So what I would request the forces and the protectors of the nation is to think different and see how you can use technology to become more efficient in what we do. Competition for resources, increasing rate of change, life's changing every day. We just have to look at the newspapers, right? One day LK Advani resigns, the next day he's back on. Today Nitish Kumar is out. So, is the media driving our country, or are people driving the country? I don't know. I heard this morning on the radio that all the allegations against some of the IPL owners are all baseless, and the people who've made allegations have taken it back. So one makes you wonder what, the misuse of information, again, is also extremely dangerous. Some of the trends in the defense and intelligence arena, of course, many of you know this. It is a period of transition, where I think in the old days you had defined allies and defined foes. Like in the world of business, we had competitors and we had friends. Today we have what we call friendly cooperation, which is sometimes you cooperate and sometimes you compete. I think this is the same with nations today. We're not really sure whether an ally is an ally or a friend is a friend. It all depends on the circumstances and the time at which that decision or that discussion is happening. Partnerships and cooperation, India today is a lot more engaged with the NATO nations in terms of cooperating, especially across the porous borders that we have in the west, the north, and the east. And again, cooperation is increasing because of some of the strategic threats happening in the Indian Ocean and the South China Seas. Leveraging and taking advantage of legacy systems. So I think over the last couple of years, there was a lot of trend and thought in terms of let's just, disregard the old systems which we built 10, 15 years ago, and let's just make everything new. That's a very nice situation. As an industry vendor, it would be great if that happens, but that's not how life works. We don't, every 10 years, we don't throw our house away and build a new house. We make modifications, we change, we take a strong foundation and build on it. So leveraging and connecting old legacy systems to new ones and new platforms, I think that's key in what we have to do together. Power projection, this is very important today, what's happening. It's not what power you have, but what you project as a nation. So India definitely is projecting to be a next superhero and a superpower. Intelligence, information, and knowledge, again, the key cornerstones of any government in terms of being smart and being informed. Challenges are multiple, and one of the biggest challenges I think which is facing intelligence gathering and defense forces and police and organizations around the world is the abundance and the enormous amount of data. And I don't remember exactly, but we had a global user conference last week where our CEO made some analysis and trends in terms of what the amount of information which was gathered in the last 1,000 years. That same amount of information today is being gathered in less than a year. So what, as mankind, all the data and information we stored in more than 1,000 years, today we do the same amount in less than a year. And I'm sure my colleague and old friend Chris Tucker over here would know the exact numbers to that. So Chris, if you're listening, I know he's not, he's busy. No problem. So the volume of data. The other one is social media. If you look around you today, I can say with I think with a lot of surety that more than 50% of the people in this audience today will have a cell phone. Or at least 75% of the audience today over here will have a cell phone, if not 100%. And of that, a majority, 60 to 70% of that audience will have a smartphone. And on smartphones today, from a 10-year-old to an 11-year-old, they all can use Facebook, they use Twitter, they all do all kinds of things, and I'm sorry, I can't keep up. I heard about a new social networking platform yesterday on the TV, which an Indian company has launched, which is supposed to be the next generation of collating what Twitter does and Facebook does into one platform. So it's incredible what's happening. And as intelligence and defense officers, I think this must be an incredible challenge for you. How do you keep up with all this information and this completely discrete and disconnected sources of information around you? But this is where intelligence comes from. It's making sense of the bytes. So I think what it leads to is, and what we believe at Hexagon, is that it leads to the requirement of an integrated multi-intelligence system. And what are the key tenets or the key basis foundation for this is there are so many streams of intelligence today, and a multi-in system or a multi-in system which a strong foundation technology platform can build today is something which takes in all the data streams coming from all these sources of intelligence, especially the human intelligence, social media, imagery, signals, the whole range, and you can read this. And it provides this as tailored information or tailored bits and bytes to actual decision makers, whether they are operators within armed forces, whether analysts, whether these are decision makers, many of you sitting at this in this audience this morning are decision makers. You don't want to know all the discrete sources of information, where they came from and how they came. What you want is one fused scenario and one simple decision support system which can tell you, based on all the streams of information, what exactly you want to know. And of course the diverse users, so any situation happens today in the nation, the armed forces need to know, police needs to know, the paramilitary forces need to know, Home Guard, Coast Guard. So there are so many diverse users, and they can all use these streams of information but make different interpretation out of that. And this is what we believe that a multi-in system today should be delivering, and technology has enabled this vision very simply. So what are the advances? And General Chandeli referred to a number of these. I think the first one is sensors. There are so many sources of sensors today. And of course, the oldest source of sensors are the human beings, right? We have not, as our population grows, we become more sensory. So we are providing more sense, we hear, we touch, we see, and we are providing that as sensors back to the ecosystem of information. Plus there are so many new sources of sensors, the explosion of CCTV, IP cameras, and there's so many kinds of new kinds of sensory devices out in the market today. Computing. As the cost of computing reduces, the power of computing is exponentially increasing. And I don't know where Moore's law stands today in terms of the rapid growth in computing power and technology. But today, what you can do on a smartphone, you could not do on a laptop 4 years ago. So the power of a laptop even 3 years ago is today available on a small smartphone, which is available in the market for maybe 10 or 15,000 rupees. So you can see the power, and take that 3 years ahead And then you can probably see a watch which will have that much computing power built in. And I don't know many of you have seen the whole concept of Google Glasses and where that's leading to in terms of wearing computer technology, not just using it, but wearing it and driving it through your eyes and through sensory vision. That's very important if you look at intelligence and where that can go. Fusion of discrete sources of information. So fusion is extremely important, because when you have so many sources of discrete data which are not connected, some are spatial, most of them are non-spatial, some are very unstructured, some are based on voice, some are based on signals, but you have to put them all together in one common platform, and that's what fusion technology is doing today. And of course, standards. So the OGC, the Open Geospatial Consortium, is here. Chris is one of the board members, so is Sanjay. General Shivkumar, I don't know if he's here, from Government of India, Department of Science and Technology is also on the board. So standards are very important. That's how you have systems talking to systems. That's how one corps of the defense forces talks to another. You can't expect everybody to use a common system. That would be nice, but it's not feasible, because everybody also has different requirements. You cannot tell the Navy that my geospatial platform should be the same as the Army and that of the Air Force, because they each have different requirements. Their strategic intent may be the same, but their tactical, their micro level intent is different, and their planning and resources are different. So using interoperable standards, whether they come from ISO, the International Standards Organization, the OGC, that's extremely key. And for us at Hexagon, that is absolutely one of the tenet foundations of what we believe in, is in building technology platforms which are interoperable. They have absolutely no data lock-ins, no data tie-ins, and we don't tie you in to say that once you're with us, that you're stuck. We believe in being open, and interoperability is key for us. So benefits, again, this is obvious, I don't have to repeat. Time, more information, better and faster decision making, and efficiency increases. That's what we all want. And what I'd like to do is kind of summarize with, again, a saying from General Dempsey, who was part of the Desert Storm and other operations from the United States Army. When he and some other people talked of enabling the tip of the spear, and you can read about this on the internet, it's a very interesting concept, and how the Air Force is using today's generation technology, modern warfare, is enabling the tip of the spear, so which is providing the right information at the right time to the right user with the right purpose. So it's not just about providing information, but we have to make it timely, useful, and fitting what the user actually wants at that time. So, as General Dempsey said, we depend on technology because it lets us use a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer. And the concept essentially comes from advanced neurosurgery, where surgeons stopped using big blades and things to using extremely small precision instruments, where you're targeting. If you're having open heart surgery, today's technology will only access that part of the heart which is diseased, and it will not touch the surrounding areas, not even the surrounding organs. And that is what, as information gatherers and intelligence officers of the armed forces, I think we are all striving to do, is hitting the right enemy at the right time with the right purpose. So what are we as industry trying to do? Putting it all together, creating a common platform for this, where you can fuse intelligence, open source information, weather information, and all kinds of web services which may come from different sources. Fuse it with streams of content coming from, again, discrete sources, and putting it all together in one visualization layer, one decision support layer. Some of the advances of the technology aspects where we feel that we really are putting a lot of stress on based on what users and customers of ours are doing around the world, and I'll just touch upon a few. Motion video analysis. This is actually changing every day, and every day in theaters of operation around the world, full motion video is being used on a daily basis for change detection, for tactical workflows like annotating and creating change maps. This is now no longer something nice to have. It is a part of tactical battlefield today, and I'm sure that our defense forces are also using full motion video or UAV technology effectively to support the same. So here is a slide, for example, which is from a real operation. And I think most of you know when this happened, how this happened, but this took about 8 to 10 years, about 8 years of planning. There's a movie on this which you can watch. Movie is based on true events and true sequences. I think so. Just interrupt for a minute. General Chair, sit down. Yeah. So we can, on behalf of Geospatial Media and all of us, and all, we'd like to welcome you, sir. Good morning, and thank you for making this not so easy journey with the changing weather. So, as we talk of change over here, even the weather this morning, when you woke up at 6 o'clock and what happened at 7, completely different. So this is what I think all of you have to deal with on a daily basis. For us, it's just a frustration of how to get from work to home or from home to work. But for you, it changes your entire day's operation, I guess. So again, you can read, this was used in terms of tracking and finding one of the most famous gentlemen in the last 25 years, and how he was caught, arrested, whatever you want to say. So that's the power of full motion video or UAV technology. Some of the things we're working on, we have come up with technology which is now patented, and it is a part of our technology portfolios, is a brand new set of dehazing technologies. Haze and fog is one of the standard challenges which face especially defense organizers, defense operators and analysts around the world. How do you see through the haze and how do you see through the fog? There isn't any magic which just says clear out everything, but there are a lot of algorithms and technologies available today where you can see with illustration over here inside the clouds, where you couldn't really with the naked eye see what was there. You can use computer vision processing to actually try and make out what is behind the cloud or behind the haze. This technology exists today. It's no longer something which is secretive. And a lot of this is also used in medical science, in terms of working with MRIs and CT scans and X-rays also. So the same technology is now being brought into the geospatial domain by us and made a part of intel gathering. Analytics, there's a whole new revolution in analytics, big data. We hear this every day. This whole concept of big data. Well, I think what people who come from defense and intelligence have been dealing with terabytes and terabytes of image information for years. So they have been essentially dealing with the big data problem. The rest of the world is catching up today because of the explosion in social media and the internet. But where we're trying to drive analytics is making it very workflow based and creating a modeling engine, not a product, but a modeling engine which enables you to use context and the way of natural thinking into creating workflows for decision making, and not having these, and giving you an opportunity to tweak it in real time. So what you see over here is as you tweak the model in real time, you can see the change in the viewer below in real time. So you don't actually have to build a model, wait for half an hour or 1 hour till it runs, and then see, okay, is this suiting my purpose or not? You do it in real time, and you can see, and then you can say, fantastic, now let's go off and complete the process. So this is where analytics is going, and this is going to even become more simple in the future and become completely natural language and context based. Fusing. You've heard about the sensor to shooter or C3I, which is now C5I SR. But I think the old fundamentals, in the old days, GIS was used as a map, right? It was using map information to create command and control information and decision support in the battlefield. But what we can do today, and we are doing today, is actually fusing different technologies, fusing GIS, fusing remote sensing, fusing photogrammetry, and unstructured data into one common platform or a GIS-based viewing platform, and so that decision makers can make decisions very effectively and rapidly. Mobility and streaming. This is a real example from Germany. This is being used by the German Armed Forces. So what we are effectively doing is over a 2G network today, they are able to stream. So a 2G network isn't very fast. It's about, I think, 128 kbps or less than 200 kbps. But they are effectively streaming 38 terabytes. This is digital globe imagery of the entire nation of Germany onto handheld. So Android devices on a handheld or a tablet in the field. This is 20 centimeter ground sample distance imagery, 14 terapixels or 38 terabytes, and they can stream that over a Wi-Fi or a 2G network into the theater of operation. And technology is making that happen today. There is compression technology, image streaming technology. Doing this with maps is not that big a challenge, but doing it with 357,000 square kilometers of data was a challenge 2 years ago, but today it's no longer a challenge. So this is how technology can completely change the paradigm. Cloud-enabled information services, again, everybody talks of the cloud. In a D&I context, it's a little different because this is all private cloud. But cloud enabling everything we can do and building applications is, again, what technology does today. So users no longer have to sit and think about how do I use software on a desktop, what does my training need, my officers change every 2 years, my soldiers are changing every 1.5 to 2 years, how do we keep them up to date? Building applications via a cloud-based server technology service is what is making life simple. We can use net banking. Essentially, net banking is the first generation of a cloud service. Nobody over here has an issue using net banking, and we'll be trying to do the same thing with geospatial technology. Rapid mapping. This is another challenge a lot of the NATO forces were facing, and we built a solution for them, where in less than 30 minutes they can create an MGCP compliant 150,000 map in the field using a web browser. Again, what we do is the system takes care of all the elevation processing, so real-time detailed processing, all the marginalia, label processing. Again, this is not for creating static print maps when you have to have the most accurate information. This is when you're in the field, there is a crisis, you have to quickly, where speed is more important than accuracy. I'm happy with 90% accuracy, but I really need a map in 30 minutes. This is the solution which helps you. And this is being used every day today in Afghanistan and other theaters around the world. So with that, I think time is up. I'd like to encourage all of us to think forward, think differently, and go back to what Churchill said, we've run out of money, we've got to now think different. So I'd like to thank the audience and the dais once again for the opportunity to start this morning. And I hope that we're going to have a great conference, and I, for one, am looking forward to learning from all the distinguished guests over here. Thank you.